Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading video for Friday, October 13th, 2023, going up on a Saturday. I am finally back to this routine, hoping I can keep it going for the rest of the month. We'll see. As always, I'm going to begin my AM reading videos by discussing a short story. I am currently in the middle of reading short stories that have been published in the summer 2022 edition of the Iowa Review. And the story I read this week was Rewards and Their Delivery Systems by Rajnesh Chakrapani. And in this story, our narrator is a Indian student, a graduate student living in the U.S. When COVID hits. And so he's living in a house with a bunch of roommates, but he's otherwise distant from everyone in his family. He gets phone calls from his dad in India, and then they're trying to get his wife, whom he refers to as N, over to America. And most of the story, in a way, deals just with the arduous immigration process, which is made worse by COVID and, Trump restrictions. So, it was a little difficult to get into. I feel like the story deliberately was meant to jump around a little bit from thought to thought, discussion to discussion, like that he's having with his father, who seems to be buying into what we might call conspiracy theories about COVID and homeopathic treatments and, being inculcated in a lab, and, he himself isn't taking good care of himself, like he doesn't take his high blood pressure medicine and ends up in the hospital for that. And meanwhile, he is on the phone with his wife, and there seems to be a lot of distance there too. There's some language distance between them, I think, because they're not quite from the same place, and she just seems a bit cold and unemotional, it feels like, on the phone. But I really do feel like what this really is meant to say, more than character development in that way, is just how dissociative things are during COVID, especially when everything's taking forever to get done and there's not much to do. There's not many ways to connect when you're sheltering in place and can only speak to your family and friends through Zoom or the phone or what have you. And so our narrator's basically sheltering in place, like listening to his roommates or the people in his classes, or occasionally going out onto the street into the immediate area in Brooklyn. But it all feels very disconnected from real life. And it's just a big waiting period. And after a while, the language in this even starts to sort of break down. We have, this is like a set of technical paragraphs that's just one word or so per line. And then very abruptly, finally things work out for his wife that, the immigration services at home and in the U.S. finally sync up, and she very abruptly is able to immigrate to Brooklyn. But we don't see the rest of that. I don't know, I feel like I'm hard on that character because, you stick with the narrator and you just start to like his quirkiness a little bit, and her aloofness is just not so, he's not connecting fully with her, and we as the audience aren't either, and I feel like that's kind of the point, is how disconnected this narrator is. But since he's the only character, then we're like in a world of one, and then you just have to be endeared to him a bit, just because he's our human contact in this COVID story. So I intended to end September with my literary newsletter and credit reading 10 books to September and putting my 10 reviews in that newsletter, which, by the way, is linked down below. It has said snippets from my Goodreads reviews. I also have a book pick. I have my book video, literary news that caught my fancy, etc. Down below. But I ended up, just a few days ago, I was only wrapping up a couple of those books that I wanted to include at the end of the newsletter, so I decided to cut it off, and so I have 8 books listed in that newsletter, and the final 2 I'm going to credit to October, which I guess technically is more accurate anyway. I, held up the books briefly, talked about them very briefly in my last damn reading video, but now they are October books that I have recently finished, so I guess I'll continue talking about them here. And the truth is, I kind of feel a little about both of them, so it's kind of a, either starting or ending the month not on the best note. But anyway, I'll first mention my Audible listen, which is Martians Abroad by Carrie Vaugn. I kind of blanked on the author name for a second. I read this as my Q3 booktube spin, which is a quarterly TBR game I play. Just a few videos ago, I posted my Q4 booktube spin. So we're checking things off here. But anyway, this is YA science fiction. I actually, I was hopeful in the beginning that it might be a little bit of a break from more challenging world-building science fiction with a lot of like hefty ideas or heavy topics to them, because this one is obviously meant to just be a pastiche to, old-timey sci-fi, like I guess the Heinlein. I think it actually directly is supposed to be credited to the Heinlein juvenile stuff, I think it is. And we are following these two kids who grew up on Mars in the first colony there in sometime in the future, and their mother decides to send them to this prestigious school on Earth called Galileo. And our narrator, Polly, in particular, isn't too thrilled about it. She wants to go to flight school and has like a trajectory laid out for herself on Mars, and doesn't really see Earth as part of her future. She sees Earth as the weird human past, whereas interstellar travel to the stars is really the future. But she has no sway with her mother, who's like the director of the colony or whatever, and she... the whole point they think is, they're the first Martian students. Her and her twin brother Charles are the first two Martian students at Galileo Academy, which is hyped up as a place for networking for, prestigious kids who, their parents are big deals in, government and business and what have you. And so I guess this is kind of supposed to put Mars on the map, and it's kind of supposed to cement them as like the first sort of aristocracy of Mars, which seems to be a little at odds with Mars being a little more collective and like having fewer hierarchies. Not that, there's not a lot of world building to sort of, go into any of this. And it can be a little bit facile. This is my problem. I'm like, there's too many heavy subjects, and then when I, get off that scale and this is all just sort of fun and games, I'm like, wait a second, where's the actual world building here? So yeah, I mean, but after a while, there are some things I think I would like to nitpick a little, like Galileo, which is supposed to be about networking and about, treating these like really high up rich kids, I guess, with some sort of class so that they can make the, connections they need for their own futures. But they're constantly in danger. And technically there's a reason for this, a spoilery reason. But it doesn't necessarily, I feel like it doesn't make sense. Like, I just feel like, the downfall of, being blasé with these kids is, or putting them in danger, I should say. It would be too devastating if their incredibly influential parents are pissed off about it, which, some seem to be and some don't seem to be. Like, at one point, Polly's closest Earth friend is almost killed in going off of a cliff during a rock avalanche, as you do. And when her parents come to speak to Polly about it, they're mostly just trying to finagle her for information about her mother. So I'm like, well, these people have no souls, apparently. I don't know. So I don't know. It just... it rubbed me the wrong way, and Polly rubbed me the wrong way as a character. She was so, there's just the one note, I'm kind of better than everyone else, and my culture's better than everyone else's, and I just, it's not that endearing, Polly. And that's what I think anyway. And she's always the only person to step up and do the right thing. And people are always asking her about that, and she's always so humble about it. And it just feels very character top-heavy, I suppose. Like, when the main character comes off as so much better than everyone else, you can't help but think, is this a vehicle for the author or something? I mean, at least there should be some nuance in this, I think, or some, truly humbling aspect for the character, where she doesn't get to be, the superstar all the time, or maybe she learns something along the way. She doesn't get to be right about everything all the time. So, I don't know, it just sort of rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe I kind kind of feel like I'm not a huge person for escapism anyway, so maybe I should just stick with my overburdened fiction. And the second book I finished is The Shore by Sara Taylor, which was at the top of my Goodreads TBR. It had been on my Goodreads TBR for a couple years until it got to near the top, and I'm glad to finally cross it off, but I don't think I was very impressed with this one either. This one, I would want to be. It takes place, the shore refers to the rural islands around the Chesapeake Bay, which is kind of in my backyard in the Maryland area. And we're following mostly these characters who are kind of related over 200 years. And there's this big sprawling family tree I showed you in the last video, and the chapters, or I guess interconnected short stories, go back and forth in time. And I feel like, I guess one of the major things it's trying to convey is how these characters are connected to each other and how they don't personally know it in their own lives, but we get to kind of understand it if, you know, you go back and forth and sort of, you know, take down clues like a detective, which just brings me to a huge pet peeve of mine, which is I don't read fiction to solve a mystery, which is a huge reason why I stay away from a particular genre. But I don't like the idea of a story only existing to sort of be like, aha, this character is connected to that one. I mean, I like character studies, and I don't think we had enough, you know, time with any character to get to know them. Besides, a lot of these stories are the same. They're about misogyny and abuse of women, and I feel like, I mean, it's a worthy topic, but it's almost like she just picked up the exact same character template and put it in different time periods. And it didn't seem authentic to, you know, actual, you know, putting down a three-dimensional character, a new person for every story. And then we get to the future stories, which are just so out there. You know, it's the type of stuff, you know, dystopian futures. We have an epidemic in this one, which of course, you know, actually this was written before COVID, but it of course lands differently after COVID. And we have a far future sort of society, which, you know, if it were explored with nuance, I would, you know, love that. That's my jam, and, you know, one of my big, you know, jams in speculative fiction. But I feel like it's just lazy here. Like, she just didn't want to, like, you know, be able to, she didn't want to take the time to think up more nuanced possible future reality. So she's like, well, let's just scrub everything clean and, you know, have a big, you know, epidemic like Station 11, which had been published by that time. Or Cloud Atlas has some of the Cloud Atlas stuff in here, I feel like. And it just wasn't as well done. And it was annoying. And, I don't know, if I were her, I wish she had followed the homegoing, you know, template by Ya Jesse, where, because there is a character from the earliest time period who marries twice and has children with both men, and then we follow their two family trees and go back and forth between them. And so maybe we could have done that, like, because that's what happened in Homegoing, where we had two sisters and we followed their family lines for a couple hundred years. So we could have gone back and forth chronologically following family lines, and then in a more authentic, character-driven way, she could talk about how each generation impacts the last, and the shore is supposed to be a big part of this, the actual physical environment. She has some beautiful physical descriptions, and that could have, you know, we could have stuck with that chronologically too, like this is what it's like here, this is what it's like there. We could have talked about, you know, how naturally it helps people survive in the wilderness in different time periods, and it could just, I mean, which I think she tried to do too, but I just, you know, it was too puzzle boxy and I didn't like it. So I just want to rewrite everything to be more character focused, is what I'm trying to say. And if she wanted to talk about misogyny and, you know, legitimate, you know, systemic issues of you know, sexual assault, we could have discussed them, you know, going through the generations, going one to the other, and how, you know, the trauma of mothers affect children and that sort of thing. And it could have, you know, felt like she was writing different characters in every story, maybe, or how, I don't know. I mean, because I feel like then, like, if you write a novel like this of interconnected short stories going 200 years, then, you know, it's like the a generational thing has to be the through line of it. Like we have to have that like ironclad, because that's the thing that's the constant, because the characters come and go. So anyway, I'm just starting to ramble. I mean, I feel like, you know, if she'd maybe just taken out the first story and called it a gothic Flannery O'Connor pastiche, maybe it would have worked, but then the rest of it just, you know, took it down for me. And now I'm just on to some brand new reading that I started in October, so, and hopefully I'll be finishing it soon, because I certainly have a bunch of other stuff I'm hoping to get to this month. And so I guess I'll start again with an audiobook. So on audio, I'm listening to The Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu, going by how his name is put on this digital screen. This one's been on my radar for a while as someone who, you know follows some science fiction hits. It was a hugely popular import from China. I know it was adapted a couple times in China, and it's about to get a US adaptation on Netflix in the new year, and that was kind of my cue, watching the trailer, which I'll link down below, to say maybe it's time to give this a chance. I'm I guess about 20-25% the way through. And I feel like I'm gathering my thoughts. This is probably something I'll do better with in a written review at the end of it. But I know we started at the Cultural Revolution in the 60s, and the death of a professor who was an astrophysicist is supposed to, I think, really put the rest of the plot in motion. We're also following his daughter, who is now more or less conscripted on working on a secret scientific project. And now I've gotten into the 40 years into the future part, where other scientists are seeing weird numbers appear in front of their eyes, and they're playing these big video games that feel very immersive, and I'm wondering if it's more than just entertainment. And there's a lot of heavy stuff going on. I mean, people have told me, and it seems true, that it's more geared toward the science. I mean, the character drama, I guess I would say character drama kind of, but it's probably more plotty drama, is on the page, but this is going to be more about physics. You know, we're leaning into the hard sci-fi, and this is where, as a particular type of science fiction reader, I sort of glaze on top, and I'm like, okay, I understand a word here or there. All right, we're going. It'll be really interesting. I definitely want to read the first book, I mean, before the show comes out, which I imagine will, as a visual medium, will be more approachable to, you know, the non-eggheads like me, and then maybe if I get to the other books after the show, it'll be interesting. Maybe I'll have more grounding. I'm not sure. So far, it's going to take a while for me to get to those other books, but first I have to get through this one. And you know, I mean, I think I'm a little engrossed. It's been a difficult week, so I do feel like even beyond my usual scientific handicaps, I'm not quite, like, I'm distracted more easily, so I might be missing some stuff, unfortunately. So hopefully I'll be able to make up for that. I like reading reviews afterwards to see, you know, what other people think, and, you know, what I maybe haven't considered. Yeah, but yeah, definitely want to finish it this week, especially before the library yanks it back from me. And the second book I've just started, just one chapter in before sitting down to film this, is This Dark Descent by Kalyn Josephson. This I picked up as one of my YA science fiction and fantasy new releases to consider for my Mock Reads Award, which is my personal reaction to the Goodreads Choice Awards, where we can't write in, you know, personal votes anymore. This one has been on my radar for several months now, but it just came out a couple of weeks ago. This is YA fantasy, secondary world with some Jewish influences. So that's coloring a lot of the rest of my reading for this month, so stay tuned to that. But so far where we are, there isn't, she hasn't introduced a lot of the, you know, Jewish or, you know, secondary world Jewish elements yet, but she's crammed a lot into this first chapter, so I imagine it'll take me a little while to get my full bearings, but we are following the first narrator Her name is Makira. She is racing with magical horses, which technically magic, I think, is forbidden in her society. So it's secret magic going on. And then the scion of the ruling house that, presides over her family catches up to this and says, well, I'm going to imprison your father for life unless you win a humongous horse race for me, but you can't use your own horse to do it. So she is in a tricky situation right now going into chapter 2. And certainly, I guess, firing on all cylinders in terms of presenting a character with a really difficult problem to overcome right out of the gate. I do think Kirkus was saying, there's a little too much jam-packed world building into this for a lot of readers, maybe especially even YA readers, to, grasp onto. And I could kind of feel it in that first chapter. And I guess I'll also show you, well, here's the maps. Here's some maps. And here's a bunch of royal lines on this page and then on that page. And then we have this illustrated beginning to part 1. I think in some ways Josephson is after my own heart as I'm drafting my own fantasy novel, and my glossary keeps getting larger and larger, so I can't complain too much. Hopefully I'll be more, engrossed or understanding of the world building as the story goes on, and I'll be reporting back. Future Rachel here to carry us out. I had a lot of trouble with the outro this morning, but since then I've gone to my synagogue for Shabbat, and it's, very hard, painful time. My rabbi gave a sermon where he talked about the people he personally knew who were killed or taken hostage in the Hamas attacks on Israel. And Jews are a small community, so most of us are only 1 or 2 steps removed from someone impacted by what happened. So there's just a lot of raw grief for this attack, which has just culminated into something so big. But it was helpful to be together in any small way. And I hope all of you who are suffering due to this and due to the trauma people are experiencing in Gaza or elsewhere in the world, I hope you find reading to be a salve for you. And I'll end on a more optimistic note to say that I also went to my local writing salon this afternoon, where recently we installed this really nifty free little library, which is getting a lot of use, so it's really exciting and cool to give this reading opportunity to the community, hoping it'll be there for a long time. And on that note, you shall see me next on this channel for my monthly AuthorTube video, where I talk about questions relating to reading and writing that AuthorTuber J.D. Archer and his writing group took part in a few years ago. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.